And welcome back to WCCF Talks Gaming, episode 22? 21? 22? One day I'm going to get these numbers right. Anyway, this week's episode
You'll never
of
get it
WCCF
right.
Talks Gaming, I probably won't, Chris. But we are coming off the heels of the official console release. So the Xbox Series X and S are now officially out. You're not going to be good luck buying them, but the PlayStation 5 digital and disc-based consoles, they're out as well. And we're going to go through and what we thought about what went right, what went wrong, and the general temperature of the market, as it were. Kai and I have been playing some Godfall this week. Dave been hitting up Watchdog Legions and AC Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And Kai, I've been playing a lot of these games. I feel like this is one of the weeks I rarely get to play games. I've been playing a lot of these. We got COD or Call of Duty Cold War has launched.
I have viewed it.
Yeah, it just launched Friday. Kai, been playing it. You say you reviewed it, Chris? Or
I'm going to be. I was finally sent the copy yesterday. I'm working night, so I'll play the single player campaign. I'll probably do a review of the single player and then do a review of the multiplayer.
Are you playing it on PC or console?
PC.
Oh, good. Maybe we'll play together on the multiplayer and get a good feel for it. Kai can jump in there too.
I'm good with that.
Actually, it's cross-platform. We can all play no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone
really send me a code, please.
Look,
nobody likes you, Dave.
Alessio, kick us off with the launch this week. Tell us how has this launch gone, especially compared to the ones in the past?
Well, the Xbox launch was a couple of days earlier, so we certainly have more feedback than the PlayStation 5 launch, which was only Thursday. And Microsoft said it's the biggest launch ever for an Xbox platform. And they've said I think 75% of the people have also picked up Xbox Game Pass.
Wow.
So it's a good rush, and at the same time, I think probably the PS5 launch went very well as well. At least that's the vibe, of course, because judging from the reviews as well, but also just the pre-release hype, the PS5 feels more next gen, just like Kai said in his reviews, on the website. And at the same time, it does have a few more interesting titles than the Xbox, because the Xbox basically doesn't have any so-called killer application right now that's exclusive to its platform. And because of course Halo was delayed, even the Medium was delayed to early next year. And but at the same time, I mean, if even PlayStation 5's launch lineup honestly isn't that great if we really dig into it, because there is Demon's Souls, of course, which is
a remake.
Yeah, so it's not a novel game. Then there's Miles Morales, which is a kind of a
that's an expansion
spin-off / DLC. Yeah, I mean, it's not a full-fat new game. And then there is Sackboy, which is a platform game, which has been getting pretty good reviews, but it's not Mario. It's not a new Mario. So it's not a groundbreaking launch lineup, and I think
better than Mario. Screw Nintendo.
I'm sorry, Chris. We lost Chris. We seem to have lost Chris. He's losing connection. Where's the kick button? Oh, I mean,
how rude.
I mean, the one of my takeaways, from this week, is something that Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, said, and he basically made the point that next year's lineup, holiday 2021, may be more important than this year's. And that's because both the Xbox and the PlayStation will still, launch and sell all of their consoles because they just cannot manufacture them enough.
In reality, the launch period of consoles never going to be the most important now because they can't manufacture enough to meet demand, and demand's already been met by the rabid fanatics who'll buy. Well, let's face it, there's enough people who would buy a Plague Rat if it had Xbox or PlayStation labeled on it. So, yeah, the first year, the launch, the games within the 6-month mark are probably the ones that will decide which sells better.
So, Dave, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I would buy that Plague Rat. Like, if it had
Nintendo on it.
If it had some sick ass, you know what? I was thinking I would never spend money on a Plague Rat, and then I thought, wait, would I buy anything? Would I get anything with Nintendo on it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I
want one myself. Not gonna lie.
They're cute. It's really cute. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. You go ahead.
Kai, what's your thoughts on the launch? How do you think?
I'm thinking Xbox actually has some decent stuff, but it's all part of Game Pass. So you get the console, you're getting that for free. I mean, between Tetris Effect Connected and just flat out getting the new Destiny expansion for free, that's a really good start right there.
How is that Tetris game? I might go ahead and get it going over here.
Oh my god. Tetris Effect is great.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's great.
Is it the same version as was launched like last year? Or is
it
a new version?
It has all that content, but it also now has like competitive multiplayer modes.
Okay.
So you can play Tetris against people.
The only thing it's missing is the PlayStation VR mode, obviously.
Of course. Yeah.
Which that is just phenomenal. Just if you just want to like zone out,
Yeah, no. My girlfriend got the PSVR, and I actually just went over to hers, just bought Tetris there and then. I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
great.
sounds weird. I've never thought of
now.
Tetris in VR.
Oh, it's wonderful because the game is such like an audio visual experience.
Yeah.
To be honest, to me, I find that like I get so focused on a Tetris, I forget what's in the peripheral vision. It's like tunnel vision style. But
that's called the Tetris effect.
Yeah.
Hey.
You're making me think of Geometry Wars. That was one of my.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed Mizuguchi last year.
Nice.
Good lad.
What's gotten me the most? It's downloading. Sorry, you had me distracted. The one thing about this launch that really killed me, that I thought was really interesting, was you guys. We've all talked about getting our hands on pre-orders and trying to do all that, and very little success. And a lot of people I know had very little success, but I actually have talked to a few people who know someone. Like a friend of mine's little brother went and bought one at the store on launch day at a GameStop. I mean, they had like 8 of them, but he was like 6th or 7th in line. He was right there at the end, but he still got one on launch day, which he tried to pre-order them and never could. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to go give my, try my hand at it. And he got it. And it's been a long time since that's been possible. So it sounds like they did do a ton of pre-orders, but a lot of places did hold on to a few for those launch day people. And I've heard some of the pre-orders were expected to not even be delivered until sometime next month.
Yeah, like Amazon is one of the worst offenders for that, from what I'm hearing.
It's a bit of a tactic for physical retailers, though. If they hold some back, they can say, like, we're going to have some in stock. It creates a bit of a rush, and people who don't get a console might end up spending some of the money they weren't, they've had.
That's true.
Ready to buy a console.
That's true. They'll get in there and they were like, well, I was here to buy something, so I'm going to buy something.
Yeah.
Even if I can't get the new one, I'm at least going to get a game for my old system, or I'm going to, I don't know. Speaking of games, so we all agree that the launch actually went pretty smooth, right? I mean,
Well,
I'd say
we
so.
still need to wait and see for PlayStation, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
for the Europeans, yeah.
oh yeah, it hasn't launched worldwide
Mm.
yet. So
Yes.
so
we're
then
still
at this
suffering out
point,
here.
5 days
point,
for us.
we can say that the Xbox launch has gone fairly well, except for geniuses blowing vape juice up into their consoles to make it look like they caught on fire.
I think I would actually love to see there be some sort of negative reaction with the console. Now, it's like it just
Yeah.
melts the fans.
Right? I will
So-
say this, it made a really good example of the cooling structure and how well it works.
Yes.
Very good
absolutely.
visual.
Yeah, so I was actually complaining about this not long ago because like every console launch has machines that malfunction. Like it's just a fact. Like
Mhm.
these machines usually have like a less than 1% failure rate, usually like a 0.1% failure rate.
Yeah.
And when
You're
you're
gonna hear
selling
about 'em.
millions on one day, you will find a few malfunctioning. And like there's a YouTube channel called Crowby Cat, and he does like video game compilations, and I actually think a lot of his stuff is really entertaining. But he has this habit of making videos about console launches that went horrifically wrong. He's like got an Xbox One X video, got a PS4 video, got a Nintendo Switch video, and then when you actually look back in hindsight, it's like, were those terrible? Was that like,
No.
disastrous?
Yeah, was it really that
No.
bad? I mean, it sucks
But
for the
he managed to-
person. If
He
you're
managed to
that
find
guy,
a handful of people that uploaded videos of their Switches with like broken screens or whatever, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Xbox One X
Can
with a
anybody
broken
think of
disk
an
drive.
actual disastrous console launch?
I mean, the 360, the red rings probably didn't show up until a few weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
I would probably
to be
say
fair-
the Wii U.
Maybe the Virtual
yeah.
Boy?
Okay, let's go Wii U. Also, when we
Wii
were
U.
talking about consoles which are just available in store on launch day, like I one of my vivid memories for some reason is just after the PS3 launch, and one of my local game stores having a sign outside saying like "Still 53 PS3s left," and
Wow.
I would call that disastrous, but for different reasons. They really
Yeah.
stepped in the pile when they launched that thing at that astronomical
Yeah,
price.
Sony really
Yeah,
messed
that was
up.
peak hubris for Sony.
Yeah,
to be
that
fair,
was,
like the launch lineup for PS3 feels pretty disastrous looking back.
well, the launch lineup
Was
was
it now?
terrible, and there was 3 games for it, something like it was.
Was that
And
PS3
one of them
or
was
PS4?
Lair. That's PS4.
Layer, I
yeah,
think you had a
yeah.
Ridge Racer, you had Genji, and not much else.
Ridge Racer.
You had Resistance, which I think was
Oh
underrated.
yeah, Resistance,
Okay.
which that was one of the early bullshot games where it showed you videos which were completely
Yeah,
unrealistic
which is
for the
unfortunate
game.
because the game itself, I really loved it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
decent. Yeah,
Yeah. Speaking
it
of
just
launch
set too high of
games,
a standard.
yeah, it did. But some of the games that we've all played this week were launch games for these consoles, even if they weren't exclusive to the console. Kai, you kick things off with Godfall on the PS5, and I've been playing it on PC. I want to have some contrasting opinions on the game. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I've got some opinions as not a game reviewer.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I wanted, like a God of War multiplayer mode to be. Like, this is just a big budget brawler. There's not a ton of depth to it, which is pretty concerning for a loot-based game. I mean, you've got 12 pseudo classes with the Valor plates, but they're all the same thing. It just changes what one of your abilities does, pretty much. You've got 5 weapon types that all feel really good on the DualSense. Like, each one has different levels to the adaptive triggers, which I don't think you get anything like that on PC.
No, I don't.
So, yeah, so like the heavier weapons feel really good in this brawler. I mean, I pretty much use the hammer almost exclusively through most of my game, and that just feels really good to just run up and smack someone in the face with those triggers.
Temper.
How
Yeah.
how does it look and how does it run on the PS5?
It looks great, but they need to dial down that bloom or ray tracing because, goddamn, I cannot see half of the screen because everything is just lit up like a Christmas tree.
It only has ray trace shadows.
Oh,
On PC only. And
Yeah.
Not yet, actually. Not.
And no, it
Not
doesn't.
yet.
It doesn't have that yet. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've actually I haven't gotten a response yet, but I did ask about the reflection engine that they're using because it is very high quality, but it's also very distracting. in the
Yeah,
sense
like
that
everything is slathered in grease.
yes, it looks like a Vaseline dream.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think I've also
sounds
played a bit on PC, and I think Kai was more or less spot on with his review in that it is the quintessential console launch game. I mean, even it's on PC as well, but it is basically the shiny, polished title that is quite fun to play for a while, but like you said, it doesn't have a lot of depth, and yeah, I think it's just that launch title that people just use it to show off new technology,
You think
new
this is this
graphics.
generation's rise?
Yeah,
that
Pretty
is
yeah.
much.
that
Oh,
is
God.
probably the best way to put it, especially if you were an Xbox gamer back then or you ever played the game. Super pretty to look at. Hey, buddy, come look at this. Look how good it looks. And then you play it for a few minutes and you're like, now we're going to set the controller down because I just showed you everything there is to see in the game.
Yeah.
Oh God, Rise. Oh Jesus.
Well, it's the problem that I had with Godfall was like I started playing it, and once I got to kind of the hub and spoke portion of the game, I had no motivation to keep going. It was about as shallow as a footprint.
Yeah.
And
You
like
got
guys,
two NPCs to talk to. The map is like, hey, here's 4 missions you can go do on. Now grind up some tokens so you can unlock the next set of levels.
yeah, and well, I got halfway through a mission and thought I had hit checkpoints, and I had to go to work, and I was like, I backed out to go to work, and whenever I got home, I was like, I'm gonna play it for a bit more and see how things progress because it looks good, it plays smooth. I'm not 100% sold on the controls. I don't like the idea of using first person shooter style controls for a hack and slash. I like to be able to move around a lot more freely, but it's not terrible. You got a quick turn. But when I loaded back into the game, I was back into the hub. And then I had to go back into the game and retread everywhere. And there wasn't enough motivation that I actually kind of forgot why I was even there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, good.
Yeah, the levels are massive, and they don't really have any good landmarks. Like, if you didn't have that little bright trail and that little compass showing your way, I would have no idea where to
It's
find half
all-
these objectives.
it's all kind of samey,
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the gist of Godfall. It's a good flashy launch title. It plays good on PC. It's just there's not a whole lot there. Dave has also been playing a couple of games that I wouldn't necessarily call them launch titles, but they do have special features for the new consoles, especially with Watchdog Legions. And I've been playing this one too, so I've got some opinions on it. But I want to hear Dave give us the real rundown, and then I'll jump in with some thoughts.
So, long story short, I don't feel like I've played enough of it to make some sort of definitive verdict on how it plays, how it feels to play, how good it is. I also haven't really felt that much more motivation to go back and find out, so take that for what you will. But this is a game which is Xbox Series S and X enhanced, and I've been playing it on the Xbox Series S, curious as I am to see what a game like this would look like, and wouldn't you know it, a lot of fuss has been made over the fact that the game includes ray tracing on the S, and it does.
I think it's the first game that includes ray tracing on the console.
Yeah. So there's a reason to shout about it, and it's there. It's definitely there. And in some places, it looks really, really nice. There's like train stations where like a neon light on the ceiling is like reflected on the floor, and it looks really nice. Maybe a little too reflective, but it does look really nice in places. When you're running past puddles and you just see a reflection of a building, and it looks good in places. But then sometimes it looks real bad. Sometimes it looks real bad. Like, so driving around in the daylight, the roof of your car will be reflective. But like the reconstructed image in the ray tracing is like a 720p checkerboard rendered image of the world around you, and it's not perfect. It doesn't have the perfect load distance, and it looks incredibly divoted on the Series S, like to the point where when you're driving down, you can tell it's trying to reflect something, but it just looks like black specks just
Just
vibrating on the
flickering.
roof of your car. Yeah. And then when it rains and it's still daylight, which does happen in the UK, this is fine, it turns all the pavements and streets reflective. And again, when it's daylight at least, this can look just terrible. Just like everything is divored to hell. It just looks like black specks are like infesting the road. It's really ridiculous. And it's a shame because when you look at the game, same areas at nighttime, it actually looks quite striking and quite nice. But also, clearly this is pushing the console because it can drop in resolution to like 900p, as Digital Foundry have explained. And you can see that. I can see that on a 4K screen. I can see that when it's dropped to that resolution, and especially when, like I said, it's in the daylight portions, and you're running around like a pool of reflections, and you can kind of see it like divvying on the edge of your character, and you make a sharp turn, and you just see a jagged edge, and you're like, "That's not 1080p."
Well, Chris,
yeah,
Dave, you and I were looking over earlier. I did an article on the PC version of the game, and what we found was based on screenshots and images and stuff, and it kind of goes along with what the guys over at Digital Foundries found, was the ray tracing on the console is somewhere between off and medium ray trace settings on PC. And that was the thing that I found on PC was the medium setting, it enabled ray tracing, and it was typically better than with it off because it cleaned up a lot of that sidewalk thing that you were talking about, which is a lot of what you get from the cube maps and the SSR that the game utilizes in conjunction with the ray tracing. But on PC, if you step it to high, it clears a lot of that out, increases the distance to which your reflecting surfaces or the reflections can trace out, which cleans up a lot of that. So it almost sounds like maybe they would have been better off just having left it off on the S and left it only on the Series X. How would you have felt if do you think if they had done that, it would have kind of hurt the next gen look? Or do you think people would have just accepted it because it's the Series S and we all accept that it's a lower class of hardware?
Yeah. So I think that probably would have been the right decision. I think for like a next gen, now current gen, it'll be current gen as soon as PS5 comes out in Europe. The current gen system, I don't really feel like should be. Yeah, I feel like 900p is that number that cursed the Xbox One generation for so long, and to see it returning with the S, it seems like a bad decision to me, because like I'm looking at it and I'm thinking the image quality, quite frankly, looks bad. I think maybe if it was like limited to indoor scenes or something, maybe. I don't know how restrictive you can be with that sort of thing on their engine side. But like I said, it does look quite striking in some indoor reflective surfaces and at nighttime. But then just like in the overworld daytime, it's either not really there or not very good. So I think I would have preferred like just a cleaner image quality overall than what it currently has.
But, I mean, several games have begun allowing for options, graphics options. So perhaps they could have just offered an option.
Yeah, like just stick the PS4 Pro, basically Watchdogs Legions settings on S, and then have the S ray tracing version as an option. I would have assumed that's a fair
It
deal.
seems like a fair compromise.
Yeah.
But there's another game you've been playing on the S that didn't do ray tracing, but has given you a better experience. And historically, it's a series that has been absolutely brutal on hardware. So what game was that one? Because I'm actually jealous of this one, because this is the one game that we were going to talk about this week that I have not gotten a chance to play, and it's the only one I really want to play.
And it's another Ubisoft game. It's Assassin's Creed. I was going to say Legion. It's Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Legion.
It's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Yeah. And so again, playing this on the Xbox Series S and seeing the difference between these two, because these are like proprietary engine Ubisoft titles. They're the big mainstream studios that work on these. They're running on the similar kind of tech. And I'm looking at one that's like obviously taken the ray tracing route and gone for like the newer gen features over all else. Seeing one which has gone a very traditional route because it looks like it's 1440p, maybe dynamic, but it definitely above 1080p. It's a solid 30 frames per second, not 60. It's absolutely nothing special because this is exactly how I would expect a AAA Ubisoft title to run on a PS4 Pro, which I've had for years. So it doesn't feel next gen. It doesn't feel impressive, but it's a really good image quality and it feels good to play.
There's nothing
Obviously, in this
distracting.
kind of game, obviously in this kind of game, like ray tracing wouldn't work because you're running through English fields and not like the city streets. It's a different kind of setting. Wouldn't be so worthwhile anyway. But yeah, like it looks really nice. The image looks really sharp, and it's fun to play so far. I feel like I've already put like a little bit more time into this than I did Watchdogs Legion, and so far so good. Pretty pleased with it.
Very nice.
So since you've also played a bit of Immortals for the preview, I'm wondering if you can give us like a lowdown of how these 3 open world Ubisoft game like differ, because as you know, there has been a lot of talk of Ubisoft open world games being samey, and of course it's a staple of Chris.
Well, they are. Let's face it. Ubisoft. I'm not saying they're bad games. Some of them can be a bit bland. I mean, you've got Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was bland, and then what was the other Tom Clancy game which failed absolutely miserably? Yeah, Breakpoint. That was. Yeah, that was.
I don't even remember it.
It was so bad.
Yeah, that was just dog shit in a can, and it's they can make good games. It's just they need to. They're open worlding everything. When you've got a racing game which is open world and they've still managed to put in towers, or in this case, you're driving to a radar mast or whatever.
Poor the crew.
Yeah, it's like they
formulate themselves to death.
Yeah, they've made it all way too formulaic, and that's why when like and open world games in general became a bit like that. But then you've got games that made it feel fresh, and as much as I say Breath of the Wild, it felt fresh as an open world game.
Shut up.
Okay. Genshin Impact, Horizon Zero Dawn, in a year that was surrounded by open world games, it stood out because it had a world that felt different, even if some of the gameplay was quite similar.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Ubisoft open worlds right now, Assassin's Creed is pretty much what you'd expect. It is pretty much what you'd expect. Like, I haven't jumped into the game too much, but it is pretty much what you'd expect. I feel like one of the big things about it that's jumped out of me is that I don't know if this was a change that they made in like Odyssey or Origins, but like when I'm climbing now, I'm not really looking for like spots that look good to climb.
Odyssey
I'm just like, she will climb any rock.
Yeah.
She will
Odyssey was a
climb
lot like
any
that.
cliff. Yeah. I didn't play those, and when I did it, I was like, when did this seep in? This Breath of the Wild style stuff.
It started with Origins. It started with the thing with Origins is there wasn't a whole lot of climbing in that game.
Yeah.
Like there
Had
wasn't
some of the pyramids, but those were still like puzzle sequences to climb up.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be climbing much of this in this game.
But how does from what you Immortals? How did that feel from what you played of it?
So yeah, segueing on from the Breath of the Wild influence in Ubisoft's work. So Immortals, as I remember, there is like a tower style system, like the tower style system, and it tries.
Can we zoom on Chris' face as he said tower style system?
Yeah,
I may have rolled my eyes
rewind the
slightly.
clip. There is still a tower style system, but in fairness, Breath of the Wild basically has that too. But this is a little bit awkward for me because basically, in Breath of the Wild, when you look off of the tower and you mark places with like your telescope or whatever to go to on your map, is super organic, and there is absolutely nothing that says this is a place worth going to. It just looks interesting. Sometimes you can see the shrines, sometimes you see a flag on a hill, etc., etc. It's like I've decided that this is one of the worthwhile places for me to mark, you know? It's a very self-affirming thing. Here, you are doing the same thing. You're like on a high point, you're looking up and you're like scanning the area, but then it's like when you hover over a good area, it's like, oh, this is the special area, and then it pops up with a name. So
I think
so
that's
it
what it is
feels
with
it feels like you're just going up and using your eagle vision to like mark your map, except you've got to like mark them individually yourself. I know it's very similar, but in one of them, it is completely your decision on where's best to go, and in the other one, the game is saying these are the good bits. You've just got to look at them.
Very,
You know,
that's what makes it with the Ubisoft games is before you used to go to the tower and suddenly it would just take the control off of you, go to the map and like you've unlocked this. Now it's half and half. Instead of letting you look around and think that looks interesting,
it feels like it's inspired by Breath of the Wild, but didn't get it or didn't want to follow through all the way. And on that note, when we're talking about like traversing across that world, this is the one big difference, because like in Assassin's Creed, when you find things on your mini map to go to, they're almost all side objectives. They're like side quests. They collect an item. You know, that's what you get in those objectives. And in Immortals, you know, it does have that sense of like almost everything you get is going to like be something to level you up or improve you. So it doesn't necessarily feel like side objectives. There is a main quest, but it has a more of a Breath of the Wild explorative feel, where it's like everywhere I go to is like still proper progression, you know?
That makes sense.
So it feels interesting. I still don't know if the interest will go through to the end, because in my preview phase, they actually gave me like a hell of a lot of in-game currency, which you can naturally earn, which can use to like upgrade your weapons and abilities. And I just sort of maxed out a lot of my like skills and stuff and went into battle with some really, really big monsters. And I was like, my combos are bigger now, but this still feels like the same game.
Yeah.
So
speaking of hand holding,
yeah.
We're gonna launch into the last title that Kai's been playing. Chris hasn't gotten around to playing it yet, and I've barely gotten started playing, and it's definitely very linear. And it's gonna be the latest Call of Duty.
I've been playing Football Manager, which is very important.
Send me a code.
So Kai, since you've been playing it, I've been playing. I'm gonna let you kind of introduce Call of Duty Cold War. What's the high points? What should we know about it?
Well, it is a Black Ops game. It's not just Cold War.
Oh,
but
yes,
I've
Black
only
Ops.
touched the multiplayer, and this is some Call of Duty-ass Call of Duty in like
Ain't
the
it,
best
though?
ways.
So
Like
I played the beta for the multiplayer, and the first time I played it in years, and it felt good.
now here's a quick question. Kai, playing it PC or console?
console. Doing
Console.
PS5.
Peasant.
Okay, no, hold on. There's a very important reason I asked this question, because the last Call of Duty that came out, Modern Warfare, was the size of a school bus to install. Okay, so you had to install everything, then Warzone coming along. This thing's like almost 300 gigs to install the whole game. But they added a new feature where you could have selective installs, and I've been begging for that forever. On the PC, when you go to install it, right off the bat, you have the option to install the base game and which portions of the rest of the game. So I haven't touched the multiplayer, because all I've installed is the base game and the campaign. Did you get that same option on the PlayStation, Kai? Or
Yes.
I love that.
The game itself, right now, I just have pretty much. Let's see. It looks like I have multiplayer zombies. They're Dead Ops Arcade. There's 3 separate campaign packs that I have not dug into to see exactly what those entail, but I'm looking at 145 gigs on my PS5.
Okay, so I've just installed the campaign and the base one, and on the PC it was like 60 gigs.
Did you install the HD texture?
I did not, because that ballooned it to over 100 gigs.
Yeah, same.
And I don't care. I've
Kids, you're supposed to show off the best graphics.
But that's I've only got 10 gigs of VRAM.
Due to the size.
Okay.
The test bench has the full version of the game, but on my PC, I've only done without the HD texture pack because I'm not leaned in looking for, split hair differences. But on PC, it does have ray trace global illumination and shadows, like local shadows and sunspot shadows. And it's very dramatic, the difference that those things make in this game. And the reason I say that is because if you follow the development line of the title, this one was supposed to have released before Modern Warfare. So
I think this one was meant to be releasing next year, but the one they were developing for this year
got delayed. There was something.
Yeah, the studios were arguing with each other, so they've literally said, like, yeah, Black Ops Cold War needs to come forward 1 year.
Okay, so it looks fantastic on PC. I'm sure it looks fine on PS5 and it runs smooth on there too. But I'm running it with all of the shinies on except for the HD Ultra Texture Pack, and it's running phenomenally. But I got out of Call of Duty years ago. Like when Modern Warfare came out, I was like, the original one, I was like, whatever. Modern Warfare 2, I put the controller down after a mission. I was lost. Black Ops came out, and I played it. I loved Black Ops. Black Ops 2, nope. Black Ops 3, tried it. I've got about 4 hours in. I was like, I don't like it. Anyway, this one, if you like the older style Call of Duty games, I think Kai would agree with me. This is classic Call of Duty. This feels like old school Call of Duty. Kind of like they were like...
Say old school, do you mean like 1 and 2 or like original Modern Warfare?
Black Ops. Yeah. And the original ones. The technology part of it isn't really a thing. There's some tech there, but it's like we're talking about in the 80s,
Yeah, Cold War stuff.
Yeah, so it feels raw. Like the opening sequence was it was fun. The opening sequence for the campaign was super fun. It always is on the opening level. But then it divulges. I will say, if anybody hasn't played the other ones, if you're going to sit down and play this, go and listen to at least a half-hour long catch-up on the story, because this one presumes that you know these characters already. There's no backstory. There's no, oh, this is Mason and this is where he's from. It's like, okay, Mason, here's where we're going now. And it's like, who's that? If you don't know. So, beautiful game, plays great. Can't really speak to the quality of the entirety of it yet, but so far the impressions are really good. But it's Chris's job to do the full analysis, not mine.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's finally installed. It's just a pain in the ass when you get it on the day of release. And plus, I'm on night shift, so it'll get done next week.
As long as you're running it at 60 FPS.
What's an FPS?
Or 120 on PS5.
24 is cinematic.
I'm aiming for 12. I think that's adequate.
It also has the reflex, right, on PC.
Yes, it does.
What's wrong, Dave?
So I mean,
Chris doesn't have access to that though.
So basically, we can play in crossplay against Kai, and we'll have the upper end because we have
all around.
Latency.
We have the lowest latency and the most.
Where's my fucking code?
Don't deserve one.
Can you play with a 5-man team, or is this gonna be like a 4-on-1 thing on that?
We're playing hardcore. I'll take all of you on.
There we go. I like that. That's the attitude.
Actually, I got a question for Kai about the DualSense implementation, because they've said they kind of tuned it for each gun.
Yes, I've only used like 3 guns so far. My Type 63 that I loved in the alpha, they weaken that so much. Like, I'm not killing the entire enemy squad as quickly as I used to, but it feels great. Like, for the single shot rifle, I'm having to pull in the trigger and feel that clunk of each shot going off. When I'm using like a submachine gun like the Milano, that trigger moves a lot more smoothly, and I can just melt the entire clip without worrying about it.
So it feels like it's a different gun you're handling, basically.
Yeah. For competitive play, people are going to turn that off. They want to pull the trigger as quick as possible. But if you want that full immersion and you just want to go and have some fun with your friends, definitely leave the haptic stuff on.
That's awesome. I like the sound of that. Well, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up here. We got some people that have to get to work or else they'll be fired and living in a cardboard box down by the river.
Oh, no, I don't think I'll get fired.
All right. Anybody got any closing remarks? It sounds like we had a really good launch. We've got some good games going, and there's a lot.
5 days until the PS5 in Europe.
Yeah. If you were American, you'd already have it.
5 days left for you to send me a PS5, Mark Sony.
Well, that's it for
Don't
me.
send
I'm
it
out.
to Dave. He doesn't deserve it.
I'm willing to sell out now and take my game's journo millions, just like Jeff.
26 days until...
I don't need millions. I'll just sell out for a pork pie and a PS5.
Who can guess what's in 26 days?
Cyberpunks.
Cyberpunk gets delayed again?
Oh.
Don't jinx it.
Feels bad, man. Feels bad.
It'll not get delayed again.
And on that
Not
note,
again.
next week's my final podcast, so make sure to tune in.
Later, guys.